Wolverine drove his claws deep into the walls of the old well. Through the narrow gaps in the cover, he witnessed an unbelievable scene. Yashida was using a katana to cut through the chains, freeing the imprisoned American soldiers. It was probably the best decision he had ever made. Suddenly, he remembered that there was still a prisoner trapped inside the well. Yashida quickly swung his sword again, cutting the chains connected to the well cover, and shouted for Wolverine to escape immediately. But Wolverine told him to jump down as well, believing the well was the safest place they could hide. At that moment, a Japanese officer in the distance kept yelling at Yashida to return to his post. Since so many prisoners had been released, the only way for the soldiers to avoid punishment was to commit ritual suicide together. One by one, the war criminals pulled out daggers, preparing to perform seppuku. Watching his comrades die before his eyes, the last remaining officer suddenly became terrified. But before he could react further, the American bomber had already dropped the atomic bomb, and within seconds, the entire land was about to be consumed by a sea of fire. The officer stared in horror as the massive mushroom cloud moved closer and closer. Completely frozen in fear, he realized that death was unavoidable. Just as he was about to take his own life, Wolverine suddenly appeared and stopped him. He quickly dragged the officer toward the inside of the abandoned well. Moments later, the two leapt dozens of meters down into the deep well as the nuclear blast storm swept across the land. Above them, in the next instant, every living thing on the surface was wiped out. Wolverine immediately pulled the heavy cover over the officer to protect him, while he himself endured the thousands of degrees of heat caused by the nuclear explosion. Minutes later, when Yashida finally looked up at the man who had saved his life, he was shocked to see that Wolverine's body had been burned almost beyond recognition. However, because Wolverine was a mutant with extraordinary healing powers, every wound on his body rapidly regenerated. Only then did Yashida realize that Wolverine had already lived for many years, while still maintaining a youthful appearance, leaving him deeply envious. Although Wolverine saved his life that day, when the two met again decades later, greed had grown inside Yashida's heart. Shamelessly, he made an almost insane request. He wanted Wolverine's power, the ability that could grant eternal life.